Patience. That's the biggest one. Especially if you're just starting out, you have to understand that things take time and just like everything in life. And so you can't hurry the process. You've got to be patient, and not only with your business, but also with your clientele that you do business with.
Main Street businesses are struggling as they face challenges nothing like we've seen before. You're listening to the Behind Main Street podcast. Let's learn from real-world Main Street entrepreneurs, pick their brains, and learn their secrets to navigate, persevere, and overcome all the modern obstacles they face every day. Get ready to peek behind the stories, the struggles, and strategies of today's Main Street entrepreneurs. Welcome to the Behind Main Street podcast. Here's your host, Chris J. Cardona.
Great day, everyone. Welcome to the show. Whether it's your first time listening or an avid follower, thank you so much for joining us. Show notes can be found at www.behindmainstreet.com. But before we get started, I would like to thank the sponsor for this episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thinkin' Local, a fundraising and giving-based marketing platform whose mission is to connect local Main Street businesses who care about making an impact in the local community with schools and nonprofits who believe in supporting their local businesses. Find out more by visiting local.com.
Awesome. For today's episode, I'm so honored to interview a good friend and a business colleague, Peter Joseph, a husband, a dadpreneur, and the founder of Joseph Insurance Broker, who specializes in helping seniors in the Medicare space for the past 3 years. He spent the last 2 decades prior in the nonprofit sector and has been recognized as a top-rated health insurance broker, as well as has garnered an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. But in my opinion, the biggest accolade of all is he is a true servant at heart. Peter, are you ready to take us behind the curtains and dig into your story?
I definitely am, Chris.
Bring out the shovels. Let's dig for gold.
Thank you. Well, I've given our listeners a little bit of a sneak peek of who you are. Why don't you tell them a little bit more about yourself and what it is that you do?
Yeah, I'm based out here in Chino Hills, California. And I've been, as you said earlier, I've been in the nonprofit sector for about 22 years. And for a lot of different reasons, but the main reason was we wanted to kind of basically get into a business that was a little bit more stable, didn't have our family move around so much. And we were actually really tired of the politics of the nonprofit section. So decided to try to find a business where my skill set would easily transfer. And lo and behold, I found a niche market where a lot of our seniors are confused by the Medicare process. They want some education. They want some free resources. They want to just have a conversation so that they can better understand the processes behind Medicare. And so I felt like this would be a great skill set for me to transfer into because I've got such a servant's heart. I love helping people. That's been all about me for the past, 30 some years. So I easily kind of just went right into this business, and it's taken off ever since. Like you said, I am a husband and a father. I've got 2 kids, a 6-year-old, he just turned 6, and then my daughter who's 11. And so they're both active in the community here. They go to a local school. And so that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. Well, from your perspective, what would you say something interesting that your family and friends, you would think that they would say about you if they were to describe you?
Well, for those who don't know, I am, my family does come from Egypt. I was actually born and raised here, but it's kind of an interesting, unique characteristic.
I didn't know that.
Myself, yeah. And so I would say one of the main things that people see in me is that I'm highly engaged and active, and I'm always looking at ways to better communities that I live in, or organizations that I'm a part of. I'm always looking at ways to build them up and give kind of that positive encouragement that's needed. And that's just from my background in the nonprofit sector. And so I always want to give back. That's kind of my motto.
That's amazing. Well, speaking of that, how would you describe your life mission?
I would say my life mission is to um, be in the process or the aspect of bettering others around me, and so in whatever ways that I can do that, um, that's my end goal. And the reason that my life mission is that is because I know that if I help others, it's kind of like karma; it comes back to you. And so I'm not doing it because of that, but obviously the more people you help, the more positive energy you put out there, it's going to come back to you. And so I've noticed in my own business, in helping communities around me and helping them increase their revenue or increase their clientele or help them become better entrepreneurs, that's increased my business. And, they've referred me out to their own clients. So it's a win-win for both.
That's fantastic. What would you say people misunderstand about you as a person?
I think the number one misunderstanding is people think, oh, he's a broker, so he's going to come off as salesy, and that's definitely not anywhere close to who I am and my
No,
personality. I'm never pushing anything on to people. Um, I'm all about educating and making sure that people understand the process behind things, and so I hope through those conversations that they trust my judgment and they do become my clients down the road. But I'm never, my services are completely free. I'm always about giving advice out, and hopefully that will, help them along the way as well.
is there something or one thing that you value the most in life? If there is, what would that be?
Family. That's huge for me. And one of the main reasons I went into this business is so that I could have some flexibility and be involved with my kids' lives, whether it be a volunteer coach for soccer and basketball and the sports that they're playing, whether it's being active on their school campuses. It's a little different, of course, with COVID now, but um, anything I can do to be involved in my kids' lives and to spend quality time as a family unit. And so my wife and I every year will take two large vacation times out, and we'll go somewhere local and then we'll go somewhere abroad to have that quality family time and to build those relationships up.
That's fantastic. Family being important to you. Have you thought about outside of the family unit, the impact that you will have in the next 5 years or so?
In terms of the community abroad, or in
Yeah,
terms of
community in general, like you being like Peter Joseph out in the world. What would your impact be in 5 years?
Well, I hope my impact is that I get people situated on the right health insurance needs because that's what I'm all about. And so I want to make sure that anyone I come across with is well educated in the health realm and that there's no surprise costs that come their way, that they're well taken care of, that their families are well taken care of. And that's about it.
I'm curious, if you had won $100 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
Well, if I won $100 million, I would probably give a majority of that back to my local community. We've had our roots in Chino Hills for the past probably 6 years now, and so we would want to give that money back to the local schools here because my kids are growing up in this community. We would want to help, invest in um, community type centers, ballparks, places where kids and families can enjoy the outdoors a little bit more. And the other thing is, I would probably give back to. I have a good friend who's part of the foster youth program. It's a nonprofit company that she works for, and I would probably give a lot of money towards that organization as well. I have a heart for kids, and so I want to make sure that foster kids are well taken care of as well, and that they've got the resources in place.
Maybe you could tell us what's the name of that nonprofit?
Uh, the name is now I can't remember the exact name, but Casa of San Bernardino. I don't know if that's the full company name, but that's how it's addressed. So
Perfect. Yeah,
Casa
well,
San
in the show notes or on the descriptions of the video, we'll connect offline. And once you let me know what that is, I'll make sure to link it in the descriptions of the video so people can kind of check that out as well.
Perfect.
So, what was your, being the last almost more than 2 decades, right? Being a nonprofit, being a servant, and then transitioning into this. But growing up, you had a background, right? What was your childhood like growing up?
Well, unfortunately, my parents divorced when I was 5 years old, and so my dad is the one who raised me. I was the only child, and it was difficult growing up. I will tell you that because of the Egyptian culture. Like I said, I was born and raised here in California, so I was very Americanized. My dad, on the other hand, had that thick Egyptian accent and was trying to maneuver both the American culture and the Egyptian culture. So it was kind of fascinating to see. We could be kind of a reality TV show, I'm sure. But through that, he did a tremendous job in raising me with great values and great integrity, and I've used that throughout my life growing up, through my schooling, through my education, through my current business as well. And so, I was highly involved with churches growing up. I was playing basketball for several years. I played on the high school teams. I was on the freshman and sophomore team. And then my junior year, unfortunately, I blew out my knee. And so I figured out ways to maneuver around that as well. And I became the camera person for our basketball team since I couldn't be on the varsity team with my health issues. And I began coaching. And so I coached AAU, I coached in college. Um, I always have had a heart for kids, and so you could see that throughout this interview. I mean, I'm talking about foster kids, my own kids. Um, I was a youth pastor growing up, so I really want to make sure kids that are growing up have the tools in place they need to succeed in life. So that's a little bit, kind of a little snippet of my background.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that about you. I think that's one thing in common that we have. My parents separated when I was, I think, 2 years old as well, and I grew up with my grandparents, and my grandpa was very, he was a university president, and so he was very, very, very strict. So, and I migrated here, and my mom lived here, so I think even for me growing up, being trying to balance, going to school back in the Philippines and then coming back here, going to school here, like you never have like a complete like understanding of both cultures. But I think the good thing about it, I mean, even for you, as you get older, you kind of get ingrained with both, which I think gives you a different perspective in life, which kind of helps. I feel it helps us kind of navigate the world, especially now. I mean, here, us living in California, like we are, this is it's like a melting pot of cultures, like almost like this second largest melting pot, maybe outside of New York, I would say. So I think,
Definitely.
it's good for us to be able to navigate on that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I mean, I know my father was one of five brothers. He was the first to come over here in 1968. And the reason they left Egypt was to have a better life for themselves, to escape a lot of the religious persecution they were going under as well. And so, that mentality grew on me. And so, obviously, I'm always looking at ways to provide for our family and make them as comfortable as possible. At the same time, I'm looking at situations where I can help those who are less fortunate and don't have the means or the resources, and so I want to be a part of that in a positive way.
Curious, did you have a dream career or like a dream job as a child?
I did. I actually wanted to go into sports medicine. Growing up, I was a huge Lakers fan, and so I'd watch Gary Vee being the athletic trainer, and I'd be like, "That's the job I want." And I was, prolific. I was good in biological sciences. That was my undergrad at UC Irvine. But I realized that I wanted to do something a little bit different, and so that's why I kind of moved into the nonprofit sector and gave that career up.
Gotcha. As a kid, were you the type of kid that liked school? Any favorite subject or least favorite subject at all?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was probably a nerd. I did love school. I would say probably my favorite subject was science. I just really did well and excelled in those subject areas. Um, Math was probably my least favorite subject, even though you have to have math in some of the sciences, but that would probably be my least favorite.
Well, that says a lot about you being in the space that you're in, right? There's a lot of there's a lot of things that you have to explain to seniors and your clientele that may not be as easy to digest, like facts and figures and like scientific, insurance is not the easiest thing to go through. So I think with your background, it kind of gives you that the nuance to be able to go through some of those technicalities with your clientele.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. I always am looking at ways to put it in layman's terms when I'm talking with my clients. Medicare is confusing, and it took me probably about 6 months to understand fully the ins and outs of the processes as well. So it's not about dumbing down, it's just about really helping clients understand different protocols and different systems in place, and to be able to not only navigate that but to conquer it in a sense, and be the master of it themselves. And so that's my whole intention behind having these conversations with my clients. So it's
Gotcha,
not a
gotcha.
dumbing down, it's just being making it so it's easy for them to understand.
Perfect, perfect. Was there something in your childhood that, when you look back at, you feel that it sort of led to where you are today? A family man, two kids, being a servant at heart, serving the community, not only in business, but in real life, right? In not real life, but in family, regular life, non-business life, right? So was there something in your childhood that you felt, kind of led you to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I had amazing mentors that I looked up to in my life that really invested in me and really took time out to mentor me and give me the advice. Obviously, with just one parent growing up, I kind of sought after that. And so, luckily, I was steered in the right direction and was given tools and resources to be able to help others. And so, when I saw, people in my life that were older that really gave back to the community, or uh, were very unselfish and donated not only their time but also their money to these certain nonprofit sectors or projects that were happening in the cities. Um, I learned from that, and I wanted to be a part of that, and I wanted to learn how to do that. And so I got those teachings from my mentors growing up.
Amazing. Was there a turning point in your life that you felt that just was a like a defining timeline in your life that, okay, well, I'm gonna take this path?
Yeah, honestly, I was highly involved with short-term mission trips when I was a part of a church, and I traveled over the world. Probably I've been to 26 countries in my lifetime, and
Wow.
just that world experience really opened my eyes, uh, and probably that was my turning point of going, "This is what I want to do with my life." There were situations where we'd go into villages and set up little like day camps for orphanages and for kids who had nothing better to do, and so we would kind of entertain and be the people, kind of the parents in that scenario. And through those experiences, it really opened my eyes to there's just a lot of need out there, and there's a lot of people who have resources that can help those people, and I want to be one of those people.
Wow, you definitely bring up a great point there. I think there's a lot of kids nowadays that don't get the perspective of what it is to live or interact outside of the US. That's why, I think we have blinders on in a lot of ways, because we only see what we see on the news, what we hear on the radio, what we see on social media. But even that is very, very filtered, right? Because on social media, you're going to see what your peers would see, your friends would see, and stuff like that. But there's a lot of perspective that you don't. But you, having been out there and actually serving the communities that are in most needs, sometimes like just having access to basic things is a big deal for them, when for us we take a lot of these things for granted in life.
Definitely, definitely, I would agree with that.
Perfect. Well, now that we've gotten to know your story in your personal life a little bit more, are you ready to go a little bit deeper?
Sure, let's go for it.
Let's take this conversation behind the alleys and go deeper.
Awesome. Well, what would you say it means to you to be a local Main Street entrepreneur?
Well, it means I made it. I'm a success story, so that's obviously great to hear. And I love the fact that when I'm, going to chamber meetings or having events here in the city, people come up to me and go, "Hey, we see your picture everywhere. We see you on social media. You're that insurance guy." So obviously, and they say it with smiles on their faces. So obviously, I'm making a positive impact on the community. People are seeing me as a trusted source, and that means a lot to me. It really does.
Was there an entrepreneur on your radar as a child?
There really wasn't, to tell you the truth. I didn't really experience that part until I got out of college. So I didn't really know what an entrepreneur was. And, growing up, I actually thought I need a 9 to 5 job. I need to work for somebody. I need to have that kind of set position. I felt like being a small business owner or a large business owner, that I just didn't have what it takes to manage that. So my eyes weren't even focused on that, to tell you the truth.
So when was it that you first became interested in actually becoming an entrepreneur? You being a nonprofit, like serving every day, kind of looking out for the needs of others, and then you're kind of going a different route. Well, you're still serving the needs of others, of course, but like from a different mindset, right? What kind of led you to, like, what piqued your interest in becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, honestly, I at first went into the insurance business as a captive agent with New York Life, and started started opening doors to entrepreneurs. And what I mean by that is, I was invited to a chamber of commerce here in the Chino Valley. And when I went to that first meeting, I met someone named Josh Sutton, who was an entrepreneur, and started having conversations with him about what it means. And it started opening my eyes to, hey, I can serve people and become my own boss in that sense. And so um, I decided to start exploring that, and the chamber really started opening my eyes and opening doors for me to be able to do that.
So when was it that that pivotal moment that you decided, today or tomorrow I'm gonna be an entrepreneur?
It was probably my first year at the chamber. I was with New York Life, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna leave this. And I started seeing these commercials about seniors being confused by the Medicare process, and I'm like, hey, that's right up my alley. I'm doing insurance. Why not just focus in on one section of the insurance industry and really be an expert in it, and along the way help people, and not be this salesy person of pushing life insurance on people, that kind of thing. And so that's the moment I decided, you know what, I'm leaving New York Life. I'm going to start my own business. Let's go for it and see what happens.
That's amazing. How was that journey like? When you left, because you come from like a nonprofit space, and then you went into like a captive insurance agent, and then now, like, leaving that, striking on your own, basically, like your own broker, and finding a niche that, like, it's amazing because you found an underserved niche, right? And which is fascinating. That's why I think you're making a lot of difference in the community, because I think sometimes, with our expertise, we try to be everything to everybody. But for you found that need that you're able to fill. So the impact that you have goes a long way. And I think that that's why you've become very successful and very well known within our community out here. So that time that you took that leap from being a New York Life agent, how was that journey like?
It was a lot of trial and error, Chris. I mean, I obviously it was a struggle at first. I won't say it was easy by far at all. I mean, it I was scared senseless. I really thought I knew what I was doing, and it probably took me about 6 months to get my feet, underneath me. But um, it was, realizing first you can't be a jack of all trades. Um, you can maybe do that down the road, but you want to really focus on one part, and be really specific about that niche, and be an expert in that area. And then all the other business will come. And so if people see that you're trustworthy, that you're an expert in this field, that you're really taking this seriously, then people will start coming to you and trusting you with their business. And so um, those first 6 months were a struggle, though. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was building relationships. I was trying to be a presence in the community, um, showing who I was, kind of my background and my story, and sharing that time and time and time again. And then it, started sticking, and people were realizing, hey, this guy is going to be around, and he's local, and he's only focused on this area. Let's see what he's all about. And it started taking off after that 6 month period.
What were some specific challenges that you faced when, that first 6 months?
Well, the biggest challenge was I started my brokerage right before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
And so it was just a struggle trying to figure out where I was going to come up with capital, to just kind of start my business, where I was going to go for advertising and marketing, um, where I was going to get my clients. Because with this business, it's a lot easier to do face to face interactions versus, especially with a senior market, doing Zoom or over the phone, and with such a private area of insurance. I mean, you're talking about social security numbers and health insurance. I mean, a lot of those, you don't really want to talk with someone who doesn't really know you, right? And so just going through that trial of building my clientele by teaching them how to Zoom, how to have a phone conversation, and sending an application in electronically. Um, and it was phone call after phone call. It wasn't like a one and done deal, that's done with other insurance kind of transactions. My clients are clients for life. I continue those conversations. There's a lot of customer service that needs to be done, and so it's not one and done. It's a continual relationship that I have with these clients, and so it takes time to develop that trust, and you've got to be patient. But the patient really worked itself out, because obviously, now we're doing well. And after going through that trial of trying to figure out where I was going to come up with the money, thankfully the chamber, as well as my business networking group that I was a part of, gave me resources that I could look to find that funding. And so there was grants out there. There was PPI, all those kind of resources I was able to attain during that pandemic, which was very helpful.
Absolutely. I think one of the things as a new entrepreneur is we always think, well, I started this, I'm going to do it all on my own. But I think, you reaching out, to the chamber, to your BNI group, to the network of businesses that you've kind of been able to build around you is really what set you up to go through those challenging periods in your business, especially, I mean, like who decides, right? Like who decides I want to start a business during the most difficult generational thing that you could think of, right? Like I guess the previous generations were like, oh, the world wars, right? Let me start a business during a world war. This is sort of similar to that. Everything is practically shut down. At least during the wars, we had jobs here. We were building stuff, right? But now it's like everything, you couldn't leave your house. We were locked down, so that was like that was yeah, I would have never imagined starting a business. I mean, you and I both sort of started, you know, deciding to do our business, during that period, which is if you look back at it, it's like it's pretty crazy. Like, no, probably not. Like, let me wait some other time
It
to do
was,
this.
and starting that business, like, and I started probably, I think, a few weeks before everything shut down. It was probably mid-February, and then things were
Mhm.
starting to trickle down. And honestly, Chris, I was freaking out. I was like, did I make the right move here? I mean, like, what am I going to be doing in 2 months with everything shut down? And thankfully, I kind of put my feet to the ground, and like you said, I kind of surrounded myself with peers and colleagues that were kind of going through the same thing, and were understanding, and we basically were encouraging each other to kind of move forward and get things going in the right direction. So that was helpful. I honestly would not have been able to do this all on my own.
Wonderful. Well, in business and in life, what would you consider a non-negotiable for you?
Integrity. That would be the biggest thing. So, I'm all about being upfront and transparent. And um, like I said earlier, I'm not about being salesy. I want to make sure people understand there's no catches, there's no strings attached when they do business with me. Um, I'm as trustworthy as they come, and if I make a mistake, I fess up to it right away. So it is about integrity. I'm not about swindling people, and I know there are businesses out there that do that.
Plenty. There's plenty.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you wish that you knew, other than don't start during COVID? But other than that, what did you wish you knew prior to becoming an entrepreneur?
Honestly, I wish I knew the resources of income that are out there for businesses that are struggling. It took me a while to find that information out, and I had to kind of weed through everything to find those resources. So, and I know not everyone qualified for those resources, but if those resources, if I knew they were in place when I started, I would have felt a lot better instead of freaking out for 3 months trying to figure out how I'm gonna fund my own business. So I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, it absolutely does. What would you say has been the most important part of your entrepreneurial journey?
The most important part has been the friends I've made along the way. I think, and that's including my own clients. I've created friendships with my clients, which is unheard of in business. Usually, it's very transactional, and so I love that relational aspect to my business. But um, I think just the entrepreneurs I've met along the way, they've been very supportive and encouraging, and I'm able to go with them for advice and knowledge if I get stumped on something. And so it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people. That's for sure.
Wonderful. If you could have one superpower, what would it be? But before you answer that, let's take a quick break.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thinkin' Local, a fundraising and giving-based marketing platform whose mission is to connect local Main Street businesses who care about making an impact in the local community with schools and nonprofits who believe in supporting their local businesses. Find out more by visiting local.com. And we're back, digging for gold on the Behind Main Street podcast.
So, Peter, if you could have one superpower, what would that be?
At this point, it would be duplicating, triplicating myself, so I can be in, in all these locations at one time. With my business growing so quickly, I've learned that I need to start hiring people. I can't be everywhere at once. I wish I could. So that would be my superpower at this point.
Absolutely, scale and leverage, being able to to do that. But it's, like
Exactly.
as a small business owner, I I think sometimes that's one of the most difficult things, right? Letting go or
It
learning to
is.
let go.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and especially because I built my business on being that relational person and giving great customer service, and so my worry is that I'm going to bring someone else on. I'm going to have to teach them all those kind of skills of of being relational, and so it's hard to let that go because it's worked for me so well, and so that scares me a little bit. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned the secret formula, right? Finding someone with integrity. I think if you were able to find someone with integrity, a lot of those things sort of fall into place because they'll basically just mimic you and they'll learn from you. I think that's one of the best things about, about you. If they can learn anything about you is about the integrity. So,
Definitely, definitely.
speaking about that, in your opinion, other than integrity, what would you say is the most crucial personality trait that an entrepreneur needs to have any semblance of success?
Patience. That's the biggest one. Especially if you're just starting out, you have to understand that things take time, and just like everything in life. And so you can't hurry the process. You've got to be patient, and not only with your business, but also with your clientele that you do business with. Um, with my area of expertise in Medicare, um, it takes several phone calls to have that person become your client. And the reason being is there's a lot of ins and outs of Medicare. There's a lot of confusing parts. And so it takes time to explain all that, to make sure the client is comfortable with what you're presenting. And so patience is the biggest key. It really is.
Absolutely. What would you consider throughout your entrepreneur journey? What has been your uh, biggest failure, and what did it teach you?
Um, well, my biggest failure was trying to start my business and gather clients before I even did all the learning and education I needed to be an expert in my field. And the reason that was a failure is because I started talking with clients. I had no idea what I was talking about. And I was probably confusing them more so than anything else. And so I learned that, like I said, that earlier word patience, you've got to go through the process of going through the training, the teaching, the education before you start whatever you're starting. And so for me, um, that was a long time coming, but it was well worth it. And in the end, now it's helped my business become more successful.
Yeah, if you could make one mistake over again, what would it be, and how would you do things differently?
The one thing I learned is um, sometimes businesses grow pretty quickly, faster than you think they will grow. And so, um, honestly, I think if I could do things over again, I would probably have a clerical or an assistant or an intern working for me right off the bat versus waiting until this flood of clients come and then trying to maneuver all that and scrambling trying to find that perfect person. So having that plan in place before you actually start, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And sometimes, like when we start a business, we because we're technicians in a way, right? Like especially like small entrepreneurs. We're not like a big corporation like a McDonald's or something like that. That it's a big process. Sometimes we are the ones. We are the business. They're relying on us, like what we do, what we bring to the table, and sometimes we don't think about being able to bottle that up for someone else to help us with, in regards to the scale of things. So yeah, absolutely. It's very, very tricky sometimes to go through something like that. Is there someone or something that you turn to those times that you feel stuck?
Yeah, I do. My wife first and foremost. She's very like one of my biggest cheerleaders, and she's able to kind of maneuver some of that stuff because she's got a background in social work and psychology. That's her undergrad major. So I'm able to kind of process things out with her. And then the other people are probably people in my BNI chapter. Josh would be a big one. Zeb, who's the president of our chamber, he's another person that I kind of bounce ideas off of. So they've helped me when I'm stuck.
Wonderful. What drives you to keep going when it's really tough?
What drives me is my kids. I mean, I want to be able to provide for them, and I want them to model after me. And so when things get tough, I want to see them see me give my whole effort and not give up, because things get tough in life, all around, not just in business. And so um, that's basically what feeds my motivation are my kids, and being um, basically the ultimate role model for them in life.
That's very tough, right? Sometimes as a parent, when we're trying to be role models for our kids, it makes a little makes the perspective on things a little bit different because we're trying to be perfect for them. But sometimes, we do make the mistakes and all that stuff. But I think if we can pass on the learnings, I guess, to them so that they don't have to repeat the same things, the same mistakes over, that's really, that would be amazing for us to be able to kind of help them on, other than being able to model for them.
Definitely, I agree with that. Yeah.
Are there resources that has helped you get through struggles other than human beings? Like, are there any things that you kind of gravitate towards when you're going through tough times?
Not currently. I would say, right now it is human beings, but I know I'm actually trying to get kind of a reference of books that I can start reading to just better my entrepreneurial skills. And so I've been talking with some people this last week actually, and trying to get kind of a list of books that I can start reading in my free time to help hone my skills a little bit.
I would suggest to you trying out at the free trial, try this service called Blinkist.com,
Okay.
Blinkist.com. They basically summarize some of the best non-fiction books, personal development, business books, 15 to 20 minutes. So, while you're driving to a client location or waiting for another Zoom meeting, you can basically finish a book. So try that out.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I definitely will. I'll check it out.
What has been the biggest aha moment for you?
The biggest aha moment was probably this past 4 months. I mean, business just started booming, and I honestly, Chris, I haven't been doing anything differently. I think it's just my practices are put into place, and they're finally starting to gain momentum. And so, um, you know, I think knowing that, hey, if you've got a plan in place, you got practices in place, those things will come. You just got to wait it out, and it will come to fruition. And so I'm seeing that in a big way these last few months. Like I said, I'm not doing anything different. I'm still being my relational self. I'm being available to all my clients. I'm building those relationships, and now business is booming. So that would be my aha moment.
If you could talk to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
I would say that good things are going to come to you if you put the work in, and I've seen that in different areas of my life and different careers, and it's been incredible. In this journey, I never saw myself owning my own business and becoming my own entrepreneur, and serving clients in this way, but here I am, and another success story. So I'm thankful for the work that I've put in to come to this place.
As an entrepreneur, what has been a productivity hack or your favorite productivity hack that you kind of go to? It could be several. It doesn't have to be one
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. I would say probably time blocking as well. I mean, I've noticed social media is huge in my business, and it's been gaining steam, especially for these last several months. And so I'll block out time, usually 3 times a week, and I turn off all the devices except for the platform I'm using, and I'll start creating content and posting that in several different forums. And so that's been huge, and that's really increased my business in the last several months. So um, yeah, time blocking would be a big one for me.
Absolutely. If you were granted 3 wishes, what would you wish for?
Uh wow. So my number one wish would be that my family would be happy and content in life. So whatever that means to them, whether it's money or family time, whatever it is. Wish number two would be that I would have a legacy to pass down. So, whether it's my book of business that I can pass down to my kids, or people would just know me, and I'd be renowned for just serving people. That would be the number one characteristic that would come to mind when people think of me. So that would be my wish number 2. And then my wish number 3 would be that I'd be able to own a professional basketball team like the Lakers. So I'm a huge basketball nut, and that would be a dream come true. So that would be awesome.
Oh my God, absolutely. You know, like at one point, I had my own agency, and in the Philippines, the people that own basketball teams are companies or corporations. At one point, one of the things on our dream wall as a company was to own our own basketball team. I knew that it was far fetched for me to try to get a Laker deal, right? But like owning one, like a professional in the professional league in the Philippines, was something that you could do. So I was like, I actually had that. So absolutely, I share that in you.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So now, what are you most looking forward to your future as an entrepreneur?
I'm looking forward to continuing to build my business. My goal is to have 340 clients by the end of 2022. And my other goal is to be able to hire not only agents that can produce, but also an assistant that can do all the clerical and social media type marketing that we need done, so that I can focus my time on my clients. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Wonderful. Is there a question that you wish I'd asked you, but that I never did?
No, I think you ran the gamut, man. So I think you covered it all. I don't think there's a I don't think there's a question that you missed.
Awesome. Well, in closing, what is one piece of advice that you can share with our listeners in their journey to become an entrepreneur?
I would say you've got the skills in place. You might not think you do. You might not think you're creative enough, but honestly, there are so many people out in this world that can help you along this journey. Don't give up. You can definitely get to this place as long as you put the work in and you've got the determination and the will and the desire. And so don't give up. Being an entrepreneur is not, it's not, let's put it this way. It's, it can be difficult, but it can also be very easy.
Great advice. Absolutely. Where can listeners learn more about you and your business?
Well, they can follow me on Facebook. We do have a business page, Joseph Insurance Broker / Medicare Specialist is our Facebook page. You can also go to our website, www.josephinsurancebroker.com. There's a lot of videos and snippets and advice on the Medicare and health insurance processes there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for giving me the time and our listeners today. So I invite our listeners to please connect with Peter and myself. Also, please do share, subscribe, leave a rating and review. I'd very much appreciate your honest feedback, which helps me continually provide impactful content that I hope you will find valuable. And remember, every day that you face adversity, think of it as an opportunity to find the gold inside you. Until next time, have a success-filled day.
Thanks for listening to the Behind Main Street podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Remember to visit www.behindmainstreet.com.